In question number 2, we're going to apply what we know about percentages to a question that ultimately will sound a lot like many of the other problems that we're going to end up seeing in this packet. So question number 2 is a great introduction to really what's coming next further down the pike. In question number 2, let's read the question first. It says the local lottery begins on the first Monday of each month with an initial jackpot of $1,000. So that word initial is usually kind of important. I'm going to highlight that. Initial usually means that's like the zero term. So $1,000 seems important. I'm going to highlight that for reference. It says every day the jackpot increases by 10%. So increases makes me think that we're going to be adding that 10% value. And I'm going to highlight that too, just so I have something to think about. In letter A, it wants us to determine the value of the jackpot on the first Tuesday. So assuming that Monday we start with $1,000, we know that Tuesday, the next day, we're going to have 10% more than what we started with. So let's think about that as we would think about a common sense situation. I would start with $1,000, and then I would increase, which tells me I'm going to add whatever the 10% amount is. So I'd have to find 10%, 0.10, if I move the decimal 2 places to the left, of times $1,000. So that's the calculation I'm going to have to do. 10% is 0.10 of 1,000. So I need to first figure out what that number is. 10%, so 0.10 times 1,000 is going to be 100. So this number is 100. And that tells me I'm going to do my initial $1,000 plus $100 more into the jackpot. So $1,000 plus $100 more is going to give me the next day's jackpot of $1,100. So $1,100 must be Tuesday's jackpot amount. And that tells me how much is going to roll over. So that makes sense. Seems like we're good to go. Now in letter B, we just have to think a little bit logically. How do we determine the value of the jackpot on Wednesday? Well, think about how this is going to work. On Wednesday, we're going to increase by another 10%. But think about it for a moment. On Wednesday, you're not starting with $1,000. On Wednesday, you're going to start with however much you had the night before. That's how much we had on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, we're going to start with 1,100, Tuesday's amount, plus 10%, 0.10, of whatever we had on Tuesday, 1,100. So it's a slightly different calculation this time. And I'll talk about that in a second. Let's make sure that we understand how to do this math. And then we'll talk about why this math was a little different on Wednesday. So again, I need to do my calculation here. 10%, 0.10 of multiply 1,100 is 110. So that means I'm taking my previous day's jackpot, 1,100, plus 110. And that gives me my new jackpot for Wednesday, which is 1,210. Now, question letter C says, whoa, 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 why did we have to do it differently? If we knew that we were adding $100 into the jackpot on Tuesday, why didn't I just add $100 more for Wednesday? Why was it different? And it was because of the idea that the jackpot is increasing by a percentage. Each day we have to find 10% of whatever's currently there. And 10% of 1,100 is different than 10% of 1,000. So every day if the jackpot keeps growing, then I'm finding 10% of whatever the new number is. So while I'm not writing down that answer for letter C, hopefully my words here can explain it. It's different than adding 100 every single day, because $100 was only a 10% increase on the first day. The next day, the increase was up to $110. And you can only assume that if the jackpot keeps growing, the number I'm adding, the number of dollars I'm adding to the jackpot is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we really do have to keep recalculating it every single day, which is tedious, but I mean, at the end of the day, we know it's giving us a better jackpot, so it's worth it to do the extra work because we know for sure it's going to pay off. I mean, literally, it's going to pay off to more money. So for letter C, that's the reason. Is because 10% of 1,000 is different than 10% of Tuesday's jackpot, which is different than 10% of Wednesday's jackpot, and so on and so forth. 10% will keep being a different number because I'm going to start with a different jackpot every time. In the next video, we're going to look at how to fill in all of the jackpots for the first week, and so we can start to make a prediction about how this lotto is going to work and how we can maximize our possible jackpot amount.